is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast with your hosts, Hambone and Stu. We're coming at you again from the clubhouse, hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. Joining me, as always, is the editor-in-chief of Unwinnable.com. He never dressed up like Danzig, but he remembers Halloween, Stu Horvath.
I keep Halloween in my heart year-round, but I don't know if it's the Misfits version or the Sam Hain version.
You know, I've heard it both ways.
Yeah, you know.
Is that why you don't dress up? Because you keep it in your heart year-round?
Yeah, I don't need to. You know, it's like drinking on St. Patrick's Day that's like for amateurs.
Right.
Dressing up for Halloween, that's for amateurs.
We drink year-round.
Yeah, exactly.
That said, I always like to dress up on Halloween, and sometimes I have 3 or 4 costumes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you have seen me at Halloween parties. You've seen me at multiple parties, and I have a different costume every time. This year, I'm not sure what I'm going to be.
That's okay.
Now, we are going to talk about Ravenloft. Ravenloft is one of my favorite modules of all time. We're not going to get too heavy into the campaign setting today. We're going to talk about it a little bit.
That's like a whole episode.
I feel like it's a can of worms.
Yeah.
Right now, we're going to talk about the module, because the module is really what launched everything. It is a perfect module. We're going to get into that a little more later. We're talking about the Tracy and Laura Hickman version today. We're also going to talk about Mixtape Massacre, which is a game I'm really looking forward to. And also, we're going to talk about what we're playing this week, which is Ghost Fighting Treasure Hunters.
Oh, this game is so much fun.
It is so much fun. Now, I got it at Gen Con,
Yeah.
which is where I buy most of my games. I just wander the halls and I try out different games, and this is what would some consider to be a little kid game.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally a little kid game, but it's an awesome little kid game.
It's a challenging little kid game.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, it's a 4-player game. It's a co-op game. Mm-hmm. So everyone has to work together. There is a haunted house with treasures inside of it.
And ghosts.
And you need to go in there with your friends and stalk about the house, steal the treasure, and get out before you spawn 6 haunts. Now, the house is filled with regular ghosts, and they are adorable. I mean, look, let's be realistic about what drew me over to this table. Cute ghosts, y'all. You know I like cute things.
You love your cute.
These ghosts are adorable. They're such cute little happy, evil-looking ghosts. And when there are more of them in a room, so it's 2 in a room. So if you get 2 in a room, you spawn a third, it spawns a haunt, which is a really demonic, crystallized-looking fire demon.
Yeah.
So the key is to get through the house without spawning 6 haunts. Now, this is a game for 2 to 4 players. Mm-hmm. We generally always play it with 4 players.
Yeah, because there's a million of us.
We are like gremlins. You get us wet, we multiply. That said, it's challenging.
Yeah.
Now, we are hardcore gamers. We've been playing games a long time.
Yeah.
We play games every week. We play games that would seemingly be really heady and above generally my pay grade. So this was what I thought to be a really fun, over-the-plate kind of just fun little party game. It got challenging and it got heated.
Yeah.
Because these ghosts spawn fast.
It's similar to another game that we've played called Flashpoint, the
Yes.
fireman game.
Yes.
Which is an infuriating game. It's the perfect metaphor. You put out the fire in one place and it sparks up in another. And the exact same thing happens in this game because you're constantly like, okay, we've got these ghosts handled, and then on the other side of the house where it's really hard to get to because of movement, and then all of a sudden you have a crisis on the other side of the house that you have to deal with. And it's really hard managing all of that. Maybe even harder than Flashpoint, because Flashpoint is an elaborate game and you have a lot more tools. You don't have a lot of tools in this game.
You don't have a lot of tools in this game. What you have is a 6-sided die.
Yep.
And you need to roll the dice to get rid of the ghosts. Now, there are little pictures of the ghosts on the dice. There's pictures of the haunts on the dice. So, essentially, to fight the ghosts, you can fight the ghosts alone in a room. You roll the dice, and if it turns up a ghost is gone. No problem. If it turns up a haunt, that ghost is still there. You have to roll whatever monster's in the room.
Yeah, you roll a haunt to get rid of the haunt.
Right. So, it's 6-sided die is a movement-based dice. There is cards in the game as well, which will draw and spawn ghosts in other rooms.
Yeah. So
and
it's
also lock doors.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Which is a major problem in this, because you'll constantly be like, oh man, I have a straight shot here. I have a 4 dice roll. I can make it out. Boom. Your buddy pulls the card wrong and the door locks up.
Exactly. And that's another thing that makes it more difficult than Flashpoint, is that Flashpoint's sort of a realistic game. So once you blow open a door, it's open. You don't have to worry about it anymore. This thing, the mansion, because you're kids, you can't really knock down doors. So the doors are constantly opening and closing, as befits a haunted house.
Right. And look, we love Halloween. We love things that are haunted. This is a game that is right over the plate for kids. It's 2 to 4 players, ages 8+. So you play with your whole family.
Yeah.
They had an expansion. I got the first expansion for it, which gives you an unbeatable blue ghost.
Oh, I didn't realize that was an expansion.
No, when I bought the game at Gen Con, that was the expansion. And you have this unbeatable blue ghost that
is a complete jerk.
He's a complete jerk.
He's an awful ghost.
Yeah.
I hate him.
And when you draw the spawn card for him, it'll just move him to other rooms, which will trigger more haunts if you have enough ghosts in the room. So it's a pretty terrible thing. This year, they came out with a new expansion, which is Ghost Fightin' Treasure Hunters Creepy Cellar Expansion.
Oh, that's fun.
Now, it's cool because it attaches right to the main board almost seamlessly. It comes with more ghosts, more haunts, more cards, and a Ghost King.
Ooh.
Now, I'm not 100% sure how this is going to work yet. I just know that, you would think it's really only 2 larger extra rooms plus a small hallway, but we know how hard it is to get through that house. That's going to make it really challenging.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited to add this to this. Of all things, it's a Mattel game.
Really?
We attribute Mattel to basic toy games, right?
Like the stuff that we grew up with. It was just nothing special. It was, the movie tie-ins.
Movie tie-ins, things you'll find in shops and Target and whatever.
Yeah.
When we love Target. I'm not slagging Target to buy games. I'm just saying that it's not something where you're going to go in there and you're going to find, oh my God, it's castles or Ilios or Imhotep. Is that how you say it?
Imhotep.
So close.
So close. You're good. That was good though.
I'm working on it. Yeah. However, this game is super challenging, super heady. They did such a good job with it. They've also produced another game called Wizards Wanted, which has its own trading system built into it. I mean, they're coming up with some really fun games, and I really look forward to seeing them every time I go to Gen Con and seeing what else they're going to roll out with. So definitely think about adding Ghost Fightin' Treasure Hunters to your game collection.
Sounds good to me.
Now, we're talking about spooky stuff.
We are.
That being said,
Gotta gird myself.
We gotta gird ourselves. So let's talk about Ravenloft.
Indeed.
Ravenloft, 1983, Tracy and Laura Hickman's masterpiece.
Yep.
I will go toe-to-toe with anyone who tries to challenge me that there is no better module out there. Single standalone module for Dungeons and Dragons. This is it. You seem pensive.
I don't really like Ravenloft.
Are you a challenger?
I am I'm a challenger, but I don't actually have a challenger. I don't have an opposite for you.
You're gonna lose sleep over this.
I am, because I think that it's great. I don't think it's good.
You're saying that you don't think it's good because you're used to the campaign setting that fell out of it?
No, because I don't think the campaign setting's good either. I think that Ravenloft is super cool, but I think that it has the problem that we talked about a little bit with Dark Sun, where it's D&D trying to be something that D&D probably shouldn't.
Right.
I think that the horror stuff is super cool, but it also has to be D&D, so you're basically just killing monsters. I don't think that it becomes super scary.
Well, I hear what you're saying. And that said, I kind of disagree with that in a way. Let's table this for a second. Let's actually get into talking about the mod. I think we're getting way far ahead of ourselves here. Yeah. So 1983, Tracy and Laura Hickman, arguably at this point a masterpiece, made for the advanced Dungeons and Dragons game system. It is a single module. It's an adventure for 68 characters, level 5 to 7. The master of Ravenloft is having guests for dinner, and you are invited. And the cover has been definitely swiped left and right. Now, the cover is Strahd von Zarovich standing on a perch next to some gargoyles with the lightning crashing in the background on the perch of his castle with bats in the background. I mean, just looking at it, it's a cool module. And it also has that nice little orange wrap around the top.
I do like the orange bar at the top. It was always a nice design touch for me.
This is module I6, number 9075 of the system. And it came out in 1983, and it was play tested for a solid 5 years. Play tested among friends, play tested among people who play D&D before it got released. So, in a past episode, we've talked about how in things like Dark Sun and other play settings, they were just trying to get to market.
Yeah.
And they had almost gang-like factions within TSR fighting with each other to get the stuff out there. Now, this does not suffer from it.
So I've heard that The Warriors actually is a dramatization of what it was like to design a game for TSR back in the 80s.
Okay. I like where you're going with this. So tell me, what gang would the team of Dark Sun be?
I'm going to go with Turnbull ACs because they have that kind of post-apocalyptic bus with the chains.
Okay.
It feels, a little unusual, a little Dark Sun.
All right, indulge me here. Planescape, what gang?
Yeah, Planescape's sort of gothy in a different way from Ravenloft, so I'm gonna go with, because of the makeup, the Baseball Furies.
Okay, all right. So then
the Harlequin aspect, kind of.
I could see it. What about Ravenloft? What would the Ravenloft team be?
Oh, the villains, the rogues, easily. I mean, they got black leather, and the main dude is super creepy with the bottles. That's
what, Luther?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, now you got me thinking of Strahd as Luther, warriors, come to the castle.
Yeah.
Oh God, with the bottles. Oh man, so that's a heavy digression. So Ravenloft,
seriously.
Wow. So Ravenloft is super fun. Now Ravenloft for me, like I love classic horror. I love universal horror. I love the idea of Dracula and all the old monsters. So, in a way I could see where some would feel, and you included, that it's kind of just like a dungeon crawl through Dracula's castle.
Yes.
That being said, it's a dungeon crawl through Dracula's castle.
And that's great. That's awesome.
I would argue almost like, hey, I see where people are like, maybe we don't need a full campaign setting over it, but let's not bury the lead here, guys. It's a dungeon crawl through Dracula's castle.
And that's why when I said that it's great, but it's not great. I'm with you on that. It's a super weird module, too. Super experimental for the time.
It is very experimental for the time. Now, in my hands, for those of you who can't see this at home, I'm holding the 2 interior covers, which are a map of Barovia and also 2 maps of the interior of the castle. Now, this is crazy. For a first-time DM, I would not recommend trying to run this game. Now,
absolutely not.
If you are a person who's like, don't tell me what I can't do, then by all means, go for it. That said, it's something that's not a traditional dungeon because you are crawling through an entire castle.
Yeah. It's a massive castle.
It is a massive castle. Now, I'm looking at the castle in my hands right now. So you have a map for the spire of the castle. You have a map for the exterior of the castle. You have what looks like 11 different maps of the interior of the castle, including spires, different floors, the rooftop, the courtyard, everything. For those of you listening at home, we're going to do... Is it considered a spoiler if it's like 1 billion years old?
We can't talk about stuff then if that's a spoiler.
Okay, yeah, because that would be the entire show totally nerfed, right? Okay, so there is a catacombs underneath as well, which is super spooky. There's a lot of different things in this module because you've got doors, double doors, secret and standard doors, one-way secret doors, teleport traps, trap door on the floor, trap door in the ceiling, windows, arrow slits, bars, portcullis, braziers.
Fire pits.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, not bras.
Not the website. Gotcha. Ladders, stairs, spiral stairs, chair throne. I mean, you have everything you could possibly want in here. If you were to take every Halloween for the next 5 years and say if you didn't want to go fully in depth in this module is so deep that you could run one floor every Halloween for the next 5 years and be completely satisfied.
I like this angle of playing Ravenloft every year because you could do it the entire module every year because of the randomness with
The Tarokka cards.
And how that... Are there 3 things?
So let me get into that.
Okay.
That's actually pretty cool. So, that said, you could run it every year for 5 years. It's only a 32-page module, not including the maps, which is pretty interesting. Now, one dynamic that this module has that others don't is you have what they call Tarokka cards. Now, the Fortunes of Ravenloft. Now, what it does is it helps you figure out where certain items are in the castle. Where Strahd's going to be. So table 1 is Fortunes of Ravenloft, which is places, which is going to tell you where to find the symbol of Ravenloft, right?
Yeah, it's the symbol of Ravenloft, and then there's a sword too, I think?
Yeah, then there's the Sun Sword, which is the Fortunes of Ravenloft, and then table 3 is Strahd's goals. It's crazy because this is a dynamic that even if you are prepping the game as a DM this is going to throw a monkey wrench right into the works from the word jump.
Yeah, and you can tell that this is born out of the extensive playtesting because every time they played it, they switched it up a little bit, probably because they were playing with the same folks.
Right, which is cool because... we've been playing D&D together now for years. So I was always like, I know you read it. I know other people read it. And I was like, could I still run Ravenloft? Because I ran Ravenloft 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, can I still run this game? Because I know everyone's kind of read it. However, it's a completely different experience every time you run it. Now, certain things happen in the game in certain rooms that are so iconic, like the room with the dragon statues.
Yeah.
You kind of know what's going on. And the organ scene,
classic, but it's sort of like watching the same movie over and over again, right? Like the Hammer Dracula movies, they don't suck because you've seen them already; they get better.
Agreed, and that's the cool thing here. The cool thing for me is that I got to play with it a little bit. I got to have a little fun with it. Like in the organ room, we tend to try to roll with music in the background. So when you went into the organ room, I played "Red Right Hand" by Nick Cave because you're a visual storyteller in a way, and you want to imagine what Strahd is playing. Now, mind you, every time I stumble, I just keep wanting to call him Dracula. Which I've been spending years trying to train myself not to do, but you just want to imagine what Strahd's playing. And to me, there's nothing more sinister than a vampire playing Red Right Hand by Nick Cave.
I mean, I would not be surprised if Strahd was a Nick Cave fan.
Strahd's a Nick Cave fan. Now, it's cool too. It comes with some charts as well. Now, what I love about this is that it's just quick look charts. So you have monsters and militia, monsters lurking in Ravenloft, tables of terror, which is great, especially because you have a lot of undead creatures. How hard is it going to be for me to turn a lich? Well, let me tell you, it's going to be pretty darn hard. Undead level by hit dice, and a really good walkthrough of Strahd's Castle, giving you some visual cues and visual things that you could look at, especially some cool spells for altered magic, because magic might work a little differently in Strahd's Castle if you're playing the thing right.
So the other cool thing about Ravenloft is Strahd. There wasn't anything like Strahd before this module came out. You never really had a boss villain. You sort of have it in Acererak from Tomb of Horrors, but he's still just a demi-lich. Strahd is the combination of the vampire stats, which are pretty formidable for D&D to begin with.
Hardy.
Not easy to kill. On top of that, they made him a 10th level mage?
Yeah, he's a 10th level magic user.
So he's got all of the magic user stuff too. So he's a very robust villain, especially for a party of 6 to 8 5th and 7th level characters. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, he's referred to as the first vampire.
Yeah.
Here, let me give you an idea of the spells that he has stock. So, 10th level magic user learned his magic from studying during his life from subsequent studies over the centuries. First level, comprehend languages, hold portal, protection from good, sleep. Second level, invisibility, locate objects, mirror image, ESP. Third level, fireball, gust of wind, suggestion. Fourth level, polymorph other, polymorph self. Fifth level, animate dead, distance distortion. So he has got heavy magic. And what's cool about it is, so you look at things like protection from good, right? Invisibility, mirror image, polymorph self, classic vampire things.
Yeah, they amplify his natural vampiric abilities. Like, distance distortion feels like something that I've seen in many a Hammer film, where
Absolutely.
It's just like how vampire kind of messes with perception.
Right. Now, I've been playing D&D for about 15 years. 4 years ago, I was still rather new at being a dungeon master. So I'm looking at this. Now, we played first edition for the Ravenloft module. So we played legit first edition. So, looking at characters now, when you think about the amount of hit points a character has now versus like hit points in first edition, like 55 hit points now is nothing.
Oh, yeah.
55 hit points because he's a 10 hit dice monster.
Yeah.
The way we played it, man, 55 hit dice was a little harder than, you'd imagine it to be.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you're playing Strahd right, you're not looking at Strahd like a typical pop out of a coffin vampire. Strahd is a master tactician. Strahd is going to play with you a little bit. He's not going to pop in there and just stand in front of you and let you attack. He's going to play some mental chess with you.
Yeah. I did still get him pretty good with that stone shape.
Oh, you got him so good with the stone shape. I was so mad at you. Oh, you almost broke the game that day. I admit in my noobness that I was foolish in the way I approached Strahd with you at that moment. However, he did survive.
Yeah,
by the grace of God and
in
form.
fairness to you, I spent the couple days in the run-up to us actually playing that thinking very hard about what a druid vampire hunter would do and how he would design his group. So, like, I had a bunch of NPCs with me and hirelings, and I had, simple stuff that they had that would maximize their vampire hunting abilities, and it was kind of jerkish of me. It made you work a little bit.
That is very big of you to admit that. Thank you.
I was like, oh, he's going to DM me? I'm going to DM him back as a player to the best of my abilities.
It was a grudge match, and that's to say the least.
It worked out great. That was some crazy. I think it took us 2 sessions to get through it.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Now,
it was a fun time.
Listen, I'll give you a fun fact. I mean, I printed up a bunch of large maps from this at Kinko's. Now, it's copyrighted material, so they're not going to print it for you. So I just made a copy, and I made like 24 by 36 posters.
That's right.
So everyone could see what the maps looked like, where they were. I used Post-it notes to cover up the different rooms and would pull them as you went.
That was great.
I spent a lot of money that day getting office supplies. I never did go back, though, for the Ravenloft 2, because I know they did make a sequel to it. I kind of felt like it was perfect as it was. And it's funny because I met Tracy Hickman and his wife at Gen Con a few times, and I was like, why the rust monster? And he kind of just like looked at me and he smiled. And he kind of gave me a nod. And I knew that was just definitely like, the players are going to be in a false sense of security.
Yeah.
Because, it's classic horror. So you think you've seen everything. And then here comes everybody's worst nightmare.
It's like a different kind of nightmare.
It is a different cause. First off, also, I hate bugs. P.S. Love cute things, hate bugs. So the rust monster was not cool, Tracy Hickman. Not cool. I will say I look forward to more Ravenloft. Not so much the campaign. This past year, I ran Curse of Strahd.
Yeah.
We played it together. We loved it because it's a 5th edition port where they did something really unique and cool. You know, you've heard me talk on the podcast before about how Wizards does take a lot of care with the kind of love and TLC that they put into the newer properties with 5th edition.
Yeah.
One of the things that I appreciated most when I met him and I was talking to him about it, I was getting my original copy of Ravenloft signed. And P.S., if you got a dark colored old module, maybe don't go with the silver Sharpie. Doesn't really come out so good. That's your lesson for the day. Just took you to Hambone school. So what I did was I was asking, I was like, oh man, I wish they'd make one for 5e. And I got another wink and a smile and I knew it was coming. So when it came out, I bought it. And I loved it because they left the original module completely intact.
Yeah.
Like they built a lot out. They built the town of Barovia out. They built the area out. They put a quick run module in the end to get your feet wet, which is a haunted house, which has a great turn at the end.
That was fun. That was super fun.
That was a lot of fun. And I just opened the book and I was like, they left it completely intact. So if you can't afford to get an original copy of Ravenloft, you can just buy the 5th edition one. It is completely intact, updated for 5th edition, right in the middle of Curse of Strahd, which, you know, hats off to you, Wizards. You done did good this time.
Yeah, we kind of mainlined that. We ran through that very fast, I feel like. And I don't have strong memories of it because of that. But now that we're talking about it, I'm just like, oh man, there were so many cool things that we did.
Well, we also approached the game as teenagers.
Yeah.
We were the bad kids in school and we had to save the town.
Yeah.
So it was a different dynamic. And we've spoken about this before in Cthulhu, where your age really does play into your level of experience.
Yes.
When we played Curse of Strahd as teenagers, teenage characters, that is, you know, we're fine. We're rocking out. We're leveling up. We're taking care of the business.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the Ravenloft module, Stu?
So I think that we kind of covered it. I feel like it's a really great homage to classic vampire movies and even other kind of horror movies, sort of the monster movie style of horror rather than like actual horror. I think that's actually a really good way of putting it. And I think that I'm changing my tune. I think that it's an excellent monster movie module.
Right on.
I stick to my guns and say that it's a fairly poor horror module, but that's a systematic problem with D&D.
Right.
That's something that carries through to the Ravenloft campaign setting. Horror is about helplessness.
Right.
You're not helpless in Castle Ravenloft.
You know what? I completely see that point of view.
But that doesn't make it less cool.
Right.
And I wish it was like slightly cooler. But I'm like, I have really particular views on horror, and I recognize that. I like it in that genericness of the monster movie. I think that you converted me. It's an excellent module.
Thank you, man.
The sequel, Ravenloft 2, it's actually called Ravenloft 2, The House on Griffin Hill, which I think is so silly. It's not a good module.
Oh, boy.
I think I've read it 2 or 3 times. I can't actually tell you what it's about. I haven't grokked it. There's 2 Strahds.
Yeah.
There's a good Strahd and a bad Strahd, and the good Strahd is sort of like Victor Frankenstein.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I bought it, and I had the same problem where I was kind of reading through it, and I just wasn't seeing it.
There's 2 Barovias, too, and you can somehow meld it with I6, the Ravenloft, and do like a maxi adventure using all 3, bouncing between times and dimensions. And
no.
Again, this is a bad sequel to a very good game.
What year did it come out?
This was 86.
So at that point, had they launched the Ravenloft campaign setting yet?
No, this is more of a direct foundation for the Ravenloft campaign setting than
the actual
original
Ravenloft module.
If you page through this, you're going to see a lot of names of characters like Aslan the Lich.
Yeah.
He's in this, and a bunch of other what would become Dark Lords make their first appearance in this.
So that's cool.
And it kind of plays with that idea of like the mists and the demiplane and the
demiplane of dread.
Yeah. And the multiple kind of realities that you could shift through. And there's like possessions, and it's called repossession, which just makes me think Repo Man.
Right.
It's a mess.
Repossession makes me think of Repossessed with Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah.
The Exorcist comedy that he did. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I love Leslie Nielsen.
I don't. I'm a serious guy. I hate laughter.
It's funny because I think with the sequel, they say it takes 10 years to become an overnight success, right?
Yeah.
So with the original Ravenloft, it took, 5 years of playtesting. It finally came out. It was great. It's hard to kind of go back to that with the sequel so soon after, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, who's to say when they started writing the sequel, that said, it does take 10 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah.
So The cover is great.
Oh, it's another Clyde Caldwell
Yeah.
vampire cover, and if you like that, it's fantastic.
Yeah, Clyde Caldwell, his vampire work is fantastic. And that's really kind of what drew me in at first when I saw the image of Strahd. To be honest, the first time I ever saw Strahd was Simon's Quest.
Oh, absolutely.
They totally lifted the cover for Simon's Quest.
Yeah, there is so much Castlevania that came out of Ravenloft.
Right.
I think it's got to be that way. I'd have to check the dates. No, yeah, absolutely. NES was 84, 85, so I don't know when the Castlevania arcade game came out, but I'm going to say it was probably after Ravenloft. I have to think that the influence ran that way from D&D to Castlevania.
Castlevania came out in 1986.
Okay, absolutely. Then there's no question. There's no question that Ravenloft made it to Japan and got in their heads.
Oh, absolutely. Simon's Quest was 87.
Yeah, and that is a totally ripped off cover.
And Dracula's Curse was 89, and you could still see, even playing Dracula's Curse, the elements of Ravenloft.
Yeah.
To me, that's why it's such an important module, because the influence extends far outside of Dungeons & Dragons.
Absolutely.
I would dare say that people who make films and people who tell visual stories, you always know when you're in the castle.
Yeah, absolutely. Strahd definitely has an outsized influence. I think that people know Strahd without realizing they know Strahd, which is kind of cool.
Which is really cool. He is quite possibly one of my favorite versions of Dracula.
Yeah.
My favorite version of Dracula always is and will always be Dracula from the Monster Squad.
Yeah.
And then it's your classic Lugosi, Strahd von Zarovich, number 3.
He's like a remix in a really fun and interesting way. In the actual novel, the Bram Stoker's Dracula, there's mention of blue flame, and it shows up in the Francis Ford Coppola version,
right?
Kind of cheesily. But the blue flame is connected to actual magic, like black magic. But you kind of have this intimation that Dracula is a black magician in the novel, but it's not really dealt with in the movies or subsequently. But then you have Strahd, who is obviously a mage. I think that's so cool. Strahd always kind of bummed me out too, because in the context of Ravenloft, because you're probably going to defeat him, and then that's the end of Strahd. It was really nice that they brought him back for a whole campaign setting where he's like completely unkillable. I always feel bad when a smart, interesting villain dies.
Well, you do like the bad guy, and you always root for them.
Well, I'm a dungeon master.
You are a dungeon master. So, Stu, any final thoughts on Ravenloft before we move on?
It's good. I've come around on it a little bit. It has its flaws, but so does everything. And you should probably play it. Even if I was sticking to my guns from earlier and was going to tell you that it's a really flawed game, it's still very, very worth playing because it's so unique and so experimental, especially for the time. You should definitely check it out.
Very cool. I will tell you this, for the collector out there, it's so cool if you can find a way to own an original copy, because there's still a ton of them out there. Don't pay too much money for it. If you can't afford it, treat yourself to the 5th edition Curse of Strahd, because it's fully intact right there in the middle of that module.
The prices, again, are so ridiculous for beat-up versions of it.
I got mine for like $25.
Yeah, that's reasonable. On eBay, it goes for ridiculous money because it's got the name recognition.
Well, they also did a 25th anniversary edition several years back, which is like a silver-faced edition, which goes for like $200 on eBay.
Yeah, I think that there's additional material in that makes that worth money.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that. That's sort of later-day TSR stuff. That might even be Wizards of the Coast.
I think it was Wizards.
Yeah, and I'm just not conversant in that stuff yet because I haven't bought it yet.
All right, so we're going to wrap up our Ravenloft talk
Bye,
with
Strahd.
that. Goodbye, Strahd. Until we meet again. Things I'm looking forward to this week is something I just want to touch on real quick. This is our Halloween episode.
Yeah.
If you haven't figured it out already, we are dropping this a few days shy of Halloween.
Our listeners can't see it, but there's all sorts of jack-o'-lanterns and real spider webs in here, and there's a giant spider in the loft, and I think it's going to eat Hambone as soon as we're done
do
recording.
it. That's scary. There's also candy corn, which is taunting me because I really don't like candy corn.
Oh, candy corn's the best. You're so wrong.
You know what? I've been right a lot this episode, so I'm just going to let that go. You know what? You can have that candy corn point.
I'm going to let the spider eat you.
Don't eat me, spider. So one of the games I'm looking forward to trying out is a game called Mixtape Massacre. It popped on my Facebook back when they were kickstarting it, and it just looks so good. It's supposed to be the ultimate horror board game. So what it is a tabletop board game where up to 6 players play as horror film archetypes and complete in a fictional 1986 killing spree to be remembered. Now, with tons of references to all your favorite 80s music, films, and pop culture icons, this is supposed to have you laughing while you're slashing. Now, what's cool is you get like really classic looking 80s style horror movie monsters. So you have like what looks like Pennywise from It. You've got a dude with a chainsaw. You've got a dude that looks like Michael Myers. You've got a dude that looks like Chucky. You've got a dude that looks like the bad Gremlin and Carrie from the movie Carrie. So it's one game board. You're just running around the town with 12 locations, allowing for multiple opportunities for slashing victims left and right, as well as sewer shortcuts to move through the town quicker. So this is a murder game.
Yeah.
It's a murder game, but it's a cute murder game. You know, for me, as much as I will describe things in gory detail in like Dungeons and Dragons, like I'm not really into violence. You know, I like pro wrestling. You know how I like my violence. This is pretty cute, pop art looking.
Creepy cute.
It's really creepy cute. Yeah. I think creepy cute is the way to describe it. And it looks like a lot of fun. It's something that I'm looking forward to trying with the gang. Some of the cards are pretty gory. And I'm looking at some of the player cards. There's a psycho looking card. There's a card that looks like it could have been pulled out of the Scream movies.
Nice.
So this is a true homage to all things 80s and 90s horror and slasher. So Mixtape Massacre, definitely check it out. I'm going to be checking it out soon too.
I'm looking forward to you checking it out because that probably means I'm going to be checking it out.
And that's why we're friends too.
Exactly.
So everyone, I hope you had an awesome Halloween this year. I hope you dressed up in the costume that made your heart sing. I hope you got all the candy that's going to make your dentist a lot of money. We're going to wrap this episode up now. Stu, where can people find you?
They could find me someplace. No place? Every place. Well, mostly just on unwinnable.com.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at Hambreaker, where I just tweet about the Bullet Club, cute puppies, video games. No, I actually don't tweet about video games.
Oh, I totally forgot. You can find me on Instagram at Vintage RPG too.
Yes, that's kind of important.
The thing we're doing.
Yeah, I tweet about board games and Dungeons and Dragons and pro wrestling. You could find me at MyTaiTV.com for my podcast, My Tai Happy Hour, where we're going to teach you how to make a tiki drink and talk shit about pop culture. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween!
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dego West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.